Well, thank you everyone for joining us today as we take a look at Hooked at First Look, how AI and marketing create instant patient connections. Because today, really what we want to focus on is turning browsers into booked patients with strategy, AI, and of course, smart design for our websites and everything that we're doing digitally online. And I think the best place to really start today, even ahead of introducing my colleague or myself, is to really talk about why we're here, right? And we're here because the patient journey begins long before somebody walks through your doors. And I think a lot of times that is forgotten or it's downplayed, right? It can be a single look that will turn somebody visiting your website or looking at your ads or anything into somebody that is a first-time patient, into somebody that is a lifetime or loyal patient. So first-time visits and first impressions aren't just visual, right? They're emotional. They want to know, does this place get me? Can I trust them with my face? And will they deliver the results? So, of course, combining marketing strategy with workflows and understanding KPI optimization is really going to create stronger patient connections. And that's really what we're going to focus on. So, who better to discuss that and discuss creating better patient engagement than industry experts that regularly discuss marketing on stages at all of the conferences in our industry? And today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by one such expert. Michael Antosi of MyAdvice Media. He's the Director of Sales and Business Development at MyAdvice. And Michael, I'll allow you to do a better job of introducing yourself.
Randy, it is always a pleasure to especially be introduced with the one industry connection that I have a huge bromance for. So greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us here. My name is Michael. Again, as Randy had mentioned, I oversee practice growth consulting with MyAdvice. Give you our background just very briefly. We were established back in 1998. We currently work with over 3,000 fee-for-service healthcare practices all throughout the United States, but really helping to focus on a lot of the top of the lead generation funnel. So getting patients to the door and getting your phone to ring, and how you start to really cultivate that through having a very powerful and well-organized online presence. When Randy had approached me about doing this topic, I really could not agree more, just because so much of how you're going to drive leads and convert revenue is based around those first impressions. I have a lot to say about that, on how that happens on the digital strategy side. Randy's going to talk a lot about that, on how that's happening on the AI side. So this is a really a coming together of two different perspectives, but ultimately blended into how it can really help you to become much more profitable from your strategy. So very looking forward to diving in.
Absolutely. And I'm Randy Torben. I'm the Vice President of Patient Acquisition at Entity Med AI. My background is on practice management and kind of patient journey optimization through my years working at EHR and EMR, understanding patient flow, but also understanding the tracking of metrics and KPIs to see whether that flow is optimized or not. And so, as Michael said, we come at this from two different directions. Me as just focusing on pre-patient into patient flow, as opposed to Michael's look at this as how we're going to get more eyes on everything that you're doing in order to bring them into your patient flow. And I mean, I think that both Michael and I will agree, first impressions matter because we're focusing on lead generation, right? I think 75% of users admit that a practice's credibility exists only because of what they see through the website, right? That's it. I trust you because of what I see. And if I don't trust what I see, then I'm going to bounce and I'm going to look at a competitor. But at the same time, it's not just about getting people in, it's about getting them engaged and making sure you're not leaking, right? If you have a great first impression, but you don't have a great first impression strategy, you might be leaking leads out the door. Lost leads is lost revenue. So we're absolutely going to focus on how that engagement ultimately elevates the patient experience and then should turn into new revenues, and how AI, especially where AI is going, can of course really impact that in a positive way. So turning it to you, Michael, this is your, wheelhouse. This is where you shine. The first impression matters. It is the digital front door. So talk us through that, and, how quickly people are making decisions and what they're making decisions based on what they see.
Randy, I like how you use the word leaking because I think that that's exactly what's happening is that every practice that I talk to, I'm sure that you talk to too, has a leaky lead faucet where they are underutilizing a lot of their first impression strategy, and that's costing them business that they have no idea that they're missing out on. To tell you a little bit of a story, though, so Randy and I, if you've been in the industry, you've probably seen us present at many different meetings, and so we're both on stage. One of the conferences, I can't remember where it was. It was a few years ago. I know that you were there, Randy. Um, but I was giving this presentation on really optimizing lead flow from your website. And so this doctor comes up to me afterwards and he talks to me. He's like, look, I've got a really big problem in my practice. And he goes on to tell me, first of all, he says to me, well, he starts by telling me that his problem is that he goes, I'm just going to tell you right now that I am the best injector in Calgary. And that's where his practice was. And he goes, I'm going to tell you right now, I've been doing it for a long time. My results look perfect. My patients are super happy. And I'm just going to tell you that I'm the best at doing that. And I said, okay, what's your problem? He said, you got a problem. And he goes, well, yeah. So he said to me that a practice had just moved into town, right a few blocks away from his practice about 6 months prior to that point. And he had noticed that ever since that time had happened, he's doing less neuromodulators, less derma fillers. And that was really having a precipitous impact down channel in terms of how he was driving revenue, because really Botox and derma filler were kind of like it's an opening to get patients to invest into other things in the practice. And he
Sure.
was doing advanced lasers, body contouring. I mean, really, really robust practice. And it was really having a trickle down effect of how he's converting revenue. So I said, all right, thanks for sharing that with me. Let's take a look at your website. So I opened up his website and Randy, immediately I knew exactly what his problem was. And he goes, well, how can you just tell me that you knew my problem? You only just took a second looking at my website. And I said, yeah, that's all the time that I needed. He goes, well, what? Tell me. And I said to him, like, listen, you just got done telling me that you are the best injector in Calgary, that your results are perfect, your patients are super happy with their outcomes. He goes, yes, that's absolutely true. And I said, I hate to tell this to you, but like your website sucks. And like this was a dinosaur website. I mean, Randy, I don't know if you remember like the ticker counters that those websites used to have back in
Oh, yeah,
the 90s.
sure.
Yeah, it like had one of those on there. And it was funny because I went to go take a look at his competitor's website and it was bright and it was vibrant and had great imagery. It made it seem as if that practice really cared about how they were coming across. So perceptions were having a trickle down impact in terms of lead flow. And so it was really no wonder to see what patients were gravitating towards. And so if you don't mind right now, I actually want to do a little bit of a test here with everybody because I took the time to put together some slides for this. But guys, patients make decisions on coming into your practice within 2.9 seconds. That's actually the data of how they narrow that down. And within that time, they're either making a decision, am I staying or am I going? And guess what? If they're not impressed by what they see at that first impression, they're just going to go to the other practice that makes it look as if they invest better. Despite this doctor's credentialing, his years of experience, patients didn't care about that because it looked like he didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to show you 6 different websites, and we're recording this, and so I'm not expecting a live answer here, but just based on that first impression, I'm going to give you 2.9 seconds. I want you to tell me which are the practices that you're going to call first based on what you see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I gave you a little bit more than 2.9 seconds. But if you were to go back and tell me again, which are the ones that you're calling at first glance, you're probably going to lead yourself to a conclusion of saying number 6 as well as number 2. Now, if we had to revisit these, why are 6 and 2 the winners? Why does it make 6 and 2 better than the rest of them? Frankly speaking, very simply, they're more visual. And that's what patients connect with. You have to connect and bridge that gap into their heart space on an emotional level. And nothing does that better than having wide images on a website, having really good conversion metrics. If you look at number 1, like it's the white on white, it's just like, there's nothing that really pops about it. And by the way, also too, I should share, these are all number 1 ranking websites in their markets for Botox. So just in case you want to know how I found these, this is how I found them. If you look at number 3, it's just so many layers of navigation. It's like, where do we go? A confused mind says no. Number 4, it probably looks like that that client that I was talking to you about in Calgary. Number 5 is we look at this again, top ranking websites for Botox. Why is the first image then that I see then of a product, right? So you never know what those narrative messages are that patients are having in their brains as they start to think about why they would come into your practice. Now, as good as a website needs to look, if it's not making your phone ring, then it's not doing the job for you in the way that it should. So this is actually Dr. Saltz. This is a mutual client between MyAdvice as well as Entity. And as we take a look, this is what I would consider, folks, the creme de la creme in terms of websites. Now, Dr. Saltz, if you know him, he's a well-known entity. You can still have a powerful looking website like this if your practice is just getting started, okay? This is not a product of years of being in business. But when you start to take a look at a site like this, it doesn't matter where patients go. The phone number, the main calls to actions are always going to stick on the eye line of a patient. Nothing is more annoying than when patients land on a website and they're like, gosh, how can I get in touch? Where is the phone number, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, as you start to see this here, what do we see right up at the top? What are the strongest calls to actions on Dr. Saltz's injectables page? It's an AI simulator. And obviously, this is what we're talking about. We're not burying the AI simulator at the bottom of this page. Why do we not do that? Because we want to increase the engagement as quickly as possible. Help to make the patient's lives much easier. If they wanted to start their journey of understanding, like, hey, how can my before and after results look? You know, we now have a simulator right here where patients can basically have an upload of their images directly through the website. That is instant engagement. And the quicker that engagement happens, the more likely that patient is going to convert. Randy, anything to add here to that?
No, I think that those are great points. I think the CTAs, the call to actions are key. Why would you hide your phone number? Why would you hide a book now button? Why would you hide the engagement tool like the simulator, right? It goes with the patient flow, not necessarily what is stimulating to the practice owner, but the practice owner, if I'm understanding you, and I think I am, needs to put themselves in the position of their patient. What is going to speak to that patient on an emotional level? And when it grabs them, is the information that I want to take advantage of right there, or am I going to have to search for it and then for whatever, possibility, take the chance of losing me because I might get frustrated and say, oh, well, you know what? Never mind. I thought I was going to do this, but I couldn't find where that simulator went. Or, you know what? I think I'm ready to book. There's a button. Oh, but somebody called my name and now I've gotten distracted.
I got to go pick up my kid from school. Like, there's always those distractions that happen, 100%.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you a question and say, of the things that you're saying, how important is it for the websites to be kind of like mobile focused as well, thinking about how often patients are looking at these sites on their phone or on a tablet, a smaller screen than your standard website that's going to be up on your PC or your laptop?
Great question, Randy. And generally speaking, the average that we find is that 75% of your traffic will come from a mobile device first as opposed to a desktop computer. So as we start to engage, again, we're here on his neuromodulators page on derma fillers. The AI injectable, that AI simulation is right up at the top. But as we continue to start to scroll down here, the great calls to actions are all infused within this page. If I needed to call his practice, I can just simply click on the phone icon. I'm connected directly to the practice's main line. Now, what I will tell you is that generally speaking, on average, your form fills on a website are going to convert at a higher rate than a phone inquiry. Why is that? Well, generally speaking, most of the time when patients are visiting websites, it's outside of normal business hours. You're a cash medicine practice. When we start to think about, the investments that we want to make, it's generally speaking, we're doing it at nighttime when maybe our kids are in bed or whatever that might be. So is there embedded forms on every single page of the website that patients can fill out their data through and have that lead get sent directly into your inbox? Again, these forms will convert at a higher rate on average than a phone inquiry will. So think about those calls to actions. In Dr. Saltz's case as well here too, He has a chat integration, an AI chat tool. And the beauty of something like this is that it does the engagement for him. It doesn't require him or his staff to engage with leads because all the engagement is done through the artificial intelligence. Now, Randy, and you could speak to this as well, so I'm curious to know what your data says on this, but generally speaking, what we find is that when leads come in, if it's through a phone inquiry, a chat, a form fill, what have you, generally speaking, when there is engagement of that lead within the first 30 minutes of time, your conversion rate is around 78%. If it's been longer than 30 minutes of time, what we've found is the conversion rate drops by half to 34%.
Yeah.
What does that tell you about the mindset that patients have? Whatever we want, we wanted that thing yesterday already. We've been thinking about getting that service done for forever. Even my wife, she still talks about getting Botox. It's been 3 years. But by the time we've made that decision, we want to come to that practice. There is always a sense of urgency in terms of how people are landing on this website. So to Randy's point, again, it's about limiting the friction, making the patient's journey into your practice as seamless as possible. Do you have a great, powerful website with great images? Do you have a great calls to action onto these pages that provides that instant lead engagement, which is what Entity does with their great AI simulator? So again, all these are very, very important components to how you nurture that lead flow and to fill up that top of the lead funnel as much as possible.
And I couldn't agree more. A few points to add to that is, as Michael was just showing you on the website, there's a form, there's a chatbot, there's a simulator. Think about when leads are engaging with your practice. If they're going to be engaging, let's say after your business hours, there's nobody there to answer the phone. Leads know that. So if we give them the tools in order to engage with you, to let you know that they are interested, whether it's a form, whether it's a simulator, the more that you can personalize that to their specific needs, once again, you're going to hit that lead on the emotional level. And one of the most important things is, again, Michael's doing a great job of showing this website, but remember that that's not the only form that there's going to be. So as you are thinking about the behavior of your leads and the target market, think about how you're going to understand behavior and then focus on what's working. There could be a form with your Google Ads. There could be a form or some type of landing page separate from your website. You could put your simulator on social media. What the takeaway here is that you want to be able to track where those forms are coming from, because sometimes it will be on your website, but sometimes it won't. And then it's going to be really important because you know your marketing attribution, and that means you're going to know where your most valuable patients came from. You're probably going to look there for your next most valuable patient as well. Now, I'm going to be a little biased, recognizing that I feel that images make the world go round. And whereas a good form, a great website can draw in that traffic and make that, that connection within 3 seconds. But there are certainly patients that want to spend more time on your site, right? They're willing to fill out your form, they're willing to click through, they're willing to do a simulation. That leads to me to using imagery, right? And clearly, I think we can all agree that stock photography isn't it, right? So we want to go from stock to stunning, so to speak. But in my thought process, because I think like a flow, the flow is you've hooked me with your website. I can go and I can see your before and after gallery, right? Your proof of expertise. But then the next step is to see whether I could join that group of happy patients, right? You've got 50 patients. I don't know whether those are 50 out of 2,500 and you've cherry picked the best. But if I can move from really being excited by that, but then getting that wow moment from myself through a personalized simulation, that is possibly going to be the most powerful type of engagement. And I focus on that because just as Michael was talking about, when we're thinking about our metrics and our KPIs, right? He was just mentioning what that conversion rate looks like. That's what it's all about. And I continue to hear other industry experts talk about average lead to consult conversion rate. And the number that I continue to hear is 10 to 15%, right? That means for every 10 leads that a practice is getting, a new consult is booked, 1 to 1.5 out of every 10, right? That's okay. And that means you need to really understand how you don't just need 10 new leads, you need 100 new leads every month. And of course, you need to manage them. But our entity med clients have seen conversion rates of 30 to 40%. That
Wow.
means out of every 10 leads, you're looking at 3 to 4 to come in and book a consult. That is twice the average that med spas are seeing currently in the US and Canada. That is a considerable increase just from having better engagement, whether it is the ability to pick up a phone, whether it is a very nicely worded form, or something as powerful as an AI simulator to literally double your conversion rate right now. I mean, just everybody think about that as you're listening to us for a second, what that could do to your bottom line. There's just one caveat to that, and it's an important caveat. And Michael, I definitely want you to weigh in on this. You use AI as a tool, not a crutch, right? Because the people that are converting have a follow-up mindset at their practice. The people reaching out to leads know that they are on sales, right? They are in sales. It doesn't matter if they're staff, a coordinator, or manager. That's what they're doing. Their job is not just to take orders, it's not just to book appointments. It is to convert those leads into consults and paying patients. That
Right.
means having a process and not being afraid to use it and really recognizing that just following up with leads 1 or 2 times is not going to do it, which means we need to add some psychology in there. And that's why, to me, visualizations are so important because they're going to help make sure that that patient can visualize that change ahead of time and maybe make that phone sales process easier with the help of AI. But AI alone is not going to do it. A web form alone is not going to do it. You really need to make sure you're following up with those prospects and patients. Would you agree with that, Michael?
100%. So the average touch point, and this is, guys, this is just sales 101, by the way. When leads are coming in, you usually give up on the lead around 8 to 10 times after the initial touch point. So absolutely right, Randy. Like if your process is one and done or 2 calls and then we're just going to turn that lead off or say they didn't close, I'm sorry, you're just not providing the engagement level that those leads need to have to be able to be nurtured properly. And look, this is an expectation that I always like to set for practices that I talk to is that a marketing company will drive leads. They cannot, it's your job to convert the leads to drive the revenue. Okay. So that's why, as we're having this conversation, Randy, that metric of effectively 3 timesing the conversion rate through AI simulation, when I hear that, I mean, that is a marketer's uh, dream. How can you make their life easier without them having to put any more throughput into that process? One of the things that I always like to help to remind my practices, and this is really one of the things that I find is so impactful with AI simulation, is that who is the hero in the overall process of a patient coming into your practice? Because it ain't the doctor, it ain't
Well
the
said.
practitioner, it is the patient.
Exactly.
And when you start to increase the engagement on the digital engagement for patients to put them into the driver's seat, because patients, they want to feel empowerment. They want to feel like they're a part of the decision-making process and they want things immediately. That's why anything that you can do to create the hook and then buff the engagement is only going to help to make your practice win in the competition game. Randy, to your point on the use of original photography versus stock photography, I think that that's absolutely huge. It only helps with really driving in the narrative as to why your practice is the best at doing what you do. Um, And listen, I know, especially for some folks, it can be a little bit more of a pain in the butt planning process. Oh, we have to go out and hire a photographer and, shoot images and make sure everyone shows up to work that day. I get it. And, stock photography can certainly be a bit of an intermediary thing to kind of get your website, going, so to speak. But I 100% agree with you. Make the investment into original photography, and not just, you having the white coat on and maybe crossing your arms like this, like you're so proud of the work that you've done, but have somebody that really understands narrative photography, that can help to tell your story from a visual perspective. These are some sites that really integrate the use of original images very, very well. This is a very cool and sexy new thing that a lot of websites have now kind of evolved into, where they actually have videography that plays on the homepage, and it really helps to give patients an understanding as to, what their journey is going to be like visually speaking through here. Notice there's no there's no like injections. There's no like me taking the needle and poking it into your face and showing you what that's all about, right? So much about your marketing is about how you execute. It's about the end result, not necessarily the execution. When you look at this site here as well, too, again, this is all blended around original photography. And what do I love about this photo? What's the distinguishing imaging about this photo? Who is the hero in this? It's not the provider, it's the patient. They are making that patient front and center in terms of their narrative on the website. So yes, stock photos can be a great thing to do. As you take a look at a website like this, for example, this is all based around stock photography. Now, are patients really going to want to come to you because they see a few green leaves in a jar with some stones in it, and it's helping to say that you're a natural or organic practice? Is that the whole reason as to why we want to come in to see you? Or is
I
it
think that's very calming. I like that. I mean, it kind of speaks to you that that is a true wellness center. Maybe that's not the message, but that's the message I get.
Well, and I think that's certainly doing that. But in the world where aesthetics is just too competitive to take kind of half-hearted measures, I would say that. Especially if your budget is low or if you don't have a lot of revenue coming in, that's all the more reasons to why you need to be doubling down further on having great images that really sell your practice. Again, seeing the blanket with a chair here, is this really helping to tell the stories to why you're the best?
Tells
No,
me it's cold in that room.
it's exactly right. Better bundle up. Um, but yeah, no, absolutely. So again, guys, all of these things really matter in terms of the conversion experience for patients. And so I could not agree more. Original images are going to really create the hook, but AI platforms are what's really going to help to really beefing up a lot of that website engagement. And to your point, Randy, help to increase those close rates. That is absolutely huge, and money that's well invested into how you're nurturing more revenue.
And I think it's those metrics that make it worthwhile. And you and I talk to practices that are 6 months in, 12 months in, 6 years in, and people measure their ROI differently. For some, it's in revenue. For some, it's getting home to cook dinner for the kids. But it's something that you can measure. And that's really why people should make these investments. That's why they should work with an agency like MyAdvice in order to walk them through this. That's how they can ultimately track their return on investment, because you can't just say I'm making a digital investment without measuring whether or not that investment was a driver of consults and treatments. So those are some KPIs that everybody needs to be tracking, right? Is I work with a marketing firm and they can talk about the number of visitors, but we need to look at our lead capture rate. Out of those visitors, how many submitted a form, how many called, how many interacted with the simulation, so that we know what that lead capture rate was. Now, once we have the lead, now we have to turn them into consults. So that's a lead to consult percentage for that conversion rate. I'm still looking at the front desk. How many leads did you talk with? How many did you book for their first appointment? And then ultimately, how many first time consults then converted into patients? And when I understand what my conversion rates are, and yes, clearly there's more than just one, then I'm looking at things like my revenue per new patient. But I want to go on record saying that for us to really focus on engaging, capturing, and converting, nurturing has to be a key element. And, Michael, you had said even people, might stop at one or two calls. The average is 8 to 10. You're probably needing to do beyond that via text, via call, via email. So working with the type of technology, an EHR, a CRM, right? Something that our AI simulations can feed into perhaps is going to be very important in the workflow. Now, just between you, me, and the lamppost, many of the softwares in our industry that are EHR, CRM combination, right, they do offer those nurturing tools. Simplast offers it, Nextech offers it, Aesthetic Record offers it. I'll just point out they're all using a white labeled version of Go High Level. So whereas the EHRs are very distinctly different, their lead nurturing tools are going to be the same. But again, we need to make sure that regardless of what you're using, the same thought process is going to be there, right? Is we need to track where those simulations, those forms are being filled out, where those phone calls are coming from, and then making sure that not only can we track those sources, but then we focus our resources on the channels that are converting or not converting. I have clients, I'm sure that you do too, who might think one or two times a week to post on social media is enough. They might themselves see enough conversion, enough traffic that that's okay. I would say that for many practices, posting on social media far more often is going to help them see the level of engagement. But if they can't track that engagement, they might just be chasing their tail. Have you seen that often, Michael? People just doing the basic blocking and tackling of, yes, I send a weekly email blast, though I don't know if it has ROI. Yes, I work with this marketing campaign, but I don't know whether it's making me any money or not. How often do you hear that?
Well, Randy, let's just even take it a step back. I talk to some practices that don't even know what the acronym ROI is.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So that means to tell you something, though, about really, if you're watching this and you're a practice owner, and if we say the phrase, KPI, key performance indicator, ROI, return on investment, CRM, client retention management tool, like these are all acronyms that I know that no one really likes to do the business stuff. But guys, it's so essential that you understand your data points. And Randy, with your background as well too, having worked at Simplast, I mean, if there's a guy that can tell you anything about understanding your metrics and how that now, a lot of your background in coming from that world and now really focusing more on the lead gen side of things, I mean, you're very much a powerful force here, man.
I'll take it.
um, but folks, yes, I mean, that is absolutely critical. You want to make the investment in having good tools that can measure your marketing channels. And, you always have to also, I would say too, the measure of a great marketing company, either if it's through Entity Med, if it's through MyAdvice or whomever, is going to help you to grow through data. It's not going to market through speculation. They're going to take the time to understand, what is your revenue like right now? How many patients are you seeing in a given week? Are you investing properly from a marketing ratio perspective as a percentage of your revenue? How do you then optimize that revenue to generate better KPIs and performance metrics? And so, again, there's a whole strategy that really goes into creating much greater lead efficiency. At the end of the day, the investments that you make into your business now are going to lower your cost of acquisition tremendously. And guys, let's face this as well too. Aesthetics has become so much more competitive. You're seeing so much more private equity that's coming into the realm of aesthetics right now, that if you're not thinking about how you're looking at data or measuring your data, you are building a less equitable business. The multiples that you could potentially get from a transaction are simply just not going to be as high if you're not tracking data well. So again, yes, make the investment into a great CRM system to measure your campaigns well. Work with good lead generation companies like Entity Med or MyAdvice that will help you with getting the exposure, with Entity helping to then convert that exposure into better paying customers for your practice. You have to start to build your team, your stable of horses, because this is too competitive to have to go out on your own. And obviously, companies like MyAdvice, Entity Med, myself, Randy, we're only here to help you.
Absolutely. And I mean, we've definitely gone over, I feel, some practical advice, right? And just thinking about things on a practical level. One thing that I always like to try to do in these conversations, Michael, as I know you do as well, is trying to give some quick wins for those people that take the time to listen to us, and to think about some actionable strategies that they can put into place. So I know for my perspective, I mean, clearly thinking more about how you're using imagery on your site, whether, beefing up your gallery, but getting rid of stock photography, but absolutely focusing on that patient. As you said, making that patient the hero or the heroine of their story by giving them a simulator. So certainly start with other engagement tools. Certainly have images of how great that you have met other patients' goals, but incorporate AI so that not only are you going to be able to better engage that one new specific lead, but it can also be that AI that's going to help answer questions after hours, like that AI chatbot, and or even do the lead nurturing, which is going to, of course, come from that CRM component, and of course that customer retention management component. I will take Michael's advice and reiterate that phrase. But I'm sure, Michael, from the marketing perspective and showing us the websites like you did, I'm sure you also have some quick wins and some ideas for our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Quick wins. Again, just to kind of recap a lot of things that we've talked about here today, invest into some original photography, not just a general like newspaper photographer, but get somebody and research somebody that understands documentary style photography, narrative photography. Very, very important. Quick win number two, if you're managing your own website, make sure that that phone number always sticks on the eye line of a patient. People do not want to have to scroll anywhere to find a phone number. So make sure that those calls to actions are very well present on your site. Those are two really, really quick, immediate wins. Randy, I actually have a little bit of a gift here for those who are watching this webinar here. And for folks that are watching this, I invite you to take out your smartphone, scan this little QR code. With this QR code, you will be receiving a complimentary website and digital marketing evaluation. This will give you a 10-second snapshot analysis on multiple different angles in terms of where your strategy is well positioned, what you need to improve upon with your website. Don't let the rest of this year go by with settling for mediocre results. I was talking to a doctor recently, and he said something that really resonated with me. He's like, success breeds complacency. So even if your practice is successful, if you feel like your lead generation is top notch, guess what? That's making you a little bit lazier. So always make the investments into incremental improvements. So this report will certainly help you with doing that. So again, here's a free report. Great original photography, phone number, calls to actions, very, very important. And guys, just in closing, I just want to say, Randy, thank you. I appreciate you bringing me on here today. For those of you who would like to talk a little bit more about how your strategy can be better positioned, the QR code over here to the left is a link to my calendar. Feel free to book at. If you're just want to stay in touch, follow me on Instagram. Would love to be able to at least reach out there as well too.
Perfect. Perfect. And again, Michael Antosi from MyAdvice, I appreciate the time today. And I'll just recap, right? Marketing isn't just about attracting patients, right? That's a big part of it, but it's about making that emotional connection, right? Making them feel understood, getting them excited and ready and to invest in your treatments and treatment plans from that very first digital handshake. So engage, capture, and convert. I'm Randy Torben from Entity Med. I appreciate the time. We look forward to speaking again soon and having you join us as well. All the best.